As we all know, Canada has set a goal to reach net zero emissions by 2050, a timeline that has caused some significant debate. Is this goal aggressive enough to turn things around? Or is it entirely unrealistic and based on false assumptions? Ultimately, the sense of urgency is tied to what we believe about climate change, our contribution as humans, and our responsibility to solve the issue. And I think this is where the debate our timeline, in my opinion, influences what strategy we choose. If both parties in Canada said that, oh my gosh, we have to change everything by 2035, then I think we'll all be looking at very similar solutions.
Cool. So we're gonna do a little math. What's the purpose of the carbon tax? To get to net zero, right?
Right.
So the idea of net zero is no emissions, everything's square. Cool. So right now, Canada produces, you said 708 million kilograms of CO2 every year, right? So what is something Canada has that consumes a lot of carbon?
Trees.
Trees. We got a lot of trees, don't we? So each mature tree consumes 22 kilograms of carbon every year. So I'll do the math. That means that you would need about 30 billion trees to consume all the carbon in Canada every year, right? Trust my math. I appreciate it.
I think we
I failed grade 12 math, so I'm trusting you.
So 30 billion, right? Canada has 320 billion trees. So by that math, even if I'm off by 90%, we're still already at net zero.
So you're claiming that we're already net zero?
We are already well below net zero, significantly, in fact. So tell me again, why we have a carbon tax?
I'll tell you why we have a carbon tax, because
I think it's still but hold on. It's still trying to get rid of the energy sector and transportation creating so many emissions.
We're already below net zero. I say that you scale up renewable energy at the pace that you can actually scale your infrastructure, like I said before.
So do you think would the timeline influence our investments as to what we look to invest in terms of energy, in terms of transport?
I think you can push. Go ahead.
This is what I remember from geography. Okay, was what happens when the leaves fall. The carbon goes into the atmosphere.
Listen, okay.
And what happens when the permafrost melts? The carbon is released into the atmosphere, which is why we are second per capita.
Okay,
right in the world.
Hold on. I'm going to say this right now. We have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to talk about this. We are not going to debate the science behind climate change, and that's not the intention on the show. I see your point. I hear you. But for me, one of the things I think we need to focus on is, as a Generation Z, as a millennial, as a Gen Alpha, when I look at the party that I wish to support, do you feel it's important to look at their timeline and what they believe the importance of that timeline is?
I think you need more reasonable data from both parties to really decide what those timelines mean.
So do we not take any action now?
I think that you should take action, but I think that we're not getting all of the information. I think here's the thing. If climate change was so dire at this point that we needed a carbon tax, which, okay, let's say we do, why is that tax just going back in rebates? That does not make sense.
Okay, so okay, go ahead.
This is where him and I agree. Okay, this is where him and I agree. And a lot of what was predicted started to happen. More droughts, more extreme weather, more flooding. Climate change has ruined crop yields. It's destroying 23% of the coffee industry. So a lot of the stuff that was predicted when I was in biology class in grade 10 is happening. So the data that I've looked at, I agree with. So we need ambitious timelines, we need ambitious policies. I understand there's an economic factor to it, which is why I've said get rid of the rebates, keep the cost nominal, and invest 100% of the money into what we talked about. That's why I've said that plan.
Okay. Jonathan, I'm curious to ask you, what would it take for people to believe the timeline is actually real? Just tell me, what would it take?
I think people just need scientific proof and better data. That's what I actually believe.
Because we have scientific proof.
We do, but we have a lot of arguments going on in there, and there's.
But there'll always be arguments because, of course, our climate change initiatives completely destroy certain industries entirely that have been around for centuries.
So can I just add one point to this? We're not going to know. The only way we're going to know is if we wait for the day after tomorrow to happen. And I don't want to wait for that day. So we need to trust the data that's there now. And getting back to cap and trade in Ontario, how the hell are you supposed to know if something's working or not if you gave it 8 months before it was canceling?
We're on the same page. I still think you need to go with all these initiatives. I do believe that renewable energy is the way of the future. Don't get me wrong. Even if the data that I just submitted is correct and we are well below net zero, that doesn't mean the rest of the world is keeping up. What I'm saying is we shouldn't put the Canadian economy in such a dire situation saying that we're not doing our part, because I believe that we already are.
Okay, so wait, let me ask you guys this. Point blank, should we push the timeline back?
No, we need to be leaders on this, and we need to be developing the technology so people come to us for the technology.
Okay, go real quick.
Yeah, we need to push it back 100%. We need to push it back so that our economy can recover, because living today is more important than creating a world tomorrow if no one can survive.
Okay, all right. When we come back, our last segment, unfortunately, how is Canada investing in these solutions? Let's talk about it.